this, the Elks Lodge, the Rotary Club, and how there used to be a bowling league every single day in every single town in America. Communities came together and they discussed. We do need something, maybe it's not a school, but we need something where kids come together and they become part of a society and a community and sports and things like that. And with the advancements in AI, you're not paid for what you memorize in college anymore. Critical thinking has become more important than ever. And more general.
For me. How about something a little more macho? Are you sure it goes with your dress?
And then they go in for whatever else. The parents will just spend 30 minutes a day with their kids reading. People really look at it. 30 minutes spent in programming kids that they can be out of the first thing
What's going on here? Sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh my God. Hey man, you got to ask some.
Homeschooling can't.
I didn't see
It's not conducive for everyone because most families have two parents who work.
The next one that they're going to mention.
And like I said, I think kids need to be with other kids. They need to be social. They need to go to school. School is truly amazing, wonderful. And I know homeschooling works for some families, but I think for the most part in America, school is so important. I mean, it might be the most important thing for children.
Yeah, but that's your opinion, and if you ask the average homeowner who's paying 65% of their property taxes are going to the salaries and the facility expenses of Chicago Public Schools, if you ask them, can I opt out? I don't want to pay 65% of my property tax bill anymore, so go to the department so go to schools and the educators. A lot of people want to opt out. I'm just saying, that's your opinion, but there can be a financial time in the history of Chicago where we are able to separate our property taxes from the educators and the education industrial complex in this city.
Well, how's Florida handling it? Because aren't they getting rid of their property taxes? They're not getting rid of their schools.
I'm just saying it's something we have to consider as a nation because the country's that broke. And at 37 trillion going to 50 trillion, this won't end well. But again, it's just debt negotiation. Maybe we should just keep spending recklessly with no personal responsibility, self-governance, or understanding of financial and economic realities. We can all just keep being children and bury our heads in the ground and say, let's just keep borrowing, spending, and taxing.
Well, let me maybe rephrase the question. Are you saying, period, ever, homeschool is the way to go, or just because we have something like the NEA, where 70% of school employees around the country sign the anti-fascist agreements to choose fight fascism over anything else, that it's so broken that there's 70% of the educators are socialists that we can't do it anymore? Or are you saying that we can rebuild it maybe down the road, but right now we got to just stop all money going to that period?
Again, the first legislation that I will publish and post, which I've already drafted with Grok, is a Balanced Budget Act. And then the second is defunding the Big Beautiful Bill. Thomas Massey's already put forth this stuff. I'm not saying anything that's going to not get shot down. Rand Paul put forward this 6-penny plan, got shot down by the Senate. So everything gets rejected. The herd, the mob that keeps voting for borrowing, spending, and taxing is the status quo, and it's not going away. I'm trying to lead a communications effort against the borrowing, spending, and taxing to bring people's conscious awareness higher to a level of fiscal prudence, understanding, self-governance, self-reliance. That quote by the Comte de Phoenix.
Anything you disagree with Thomas Massey
on? Not really. Everything he posts, I'm just like, I don't really really disagree with anything. It's like transparent, political, transparent. I mean, he's playing a clean game to me, and he seems very intelligent. You know, he's got these documentaries, the way he runs his life, his house. He's a scientist. He's an American. I think he's got a great understanding of our law, our history, and so there's very little that I disagree with him on. I mean, if you want to,
Foreign funding for other countries.
yeah, he wants to cut it, and I want to cut it too. You can go to the State Department and view the top, 100 countries and what they're getting. The king's son in the United Nations, is shit talking.
I understand there's inequity, but your platform has zero funding to other nations?
I would personally go to zero funding. I would completely restrict all international funding, loans, any type of agreements, completely flush out the requisition system.
How about if the intelligence agency said to you, because you were one of the members of the Gang of Eight, if we stop funding country X, Y, and Z, our defense budget is going to have to increase more because this is what's going to potentially happen to the United States.
Well, let me
How
just
would you feel about that?
before
You're a member of the Gang of Eight.
I answer that question, before I answer your question, let me ask you this: should we still allow generals to present as women and be transgender in the Army, Marines, Navy, Air Force? Should we still allow men to dress up as women in the military?
I don't know. First of all, I concur with that, but I don't know how that has any relevance to your gang. You're a member of the Gang of Eight, one of the most important congressmen because you've earned it. You've now sat in a national security skiff, and people have told you with a great deal of credibility that you trust and believe that by cutting foreign funding to X, Y, and Z, it makes the United States more dangerous. What happens? What do you do?
Listen, you can consider this your skiff, and I would just tell you that if I would do what Wrigley did, if I had $1 million, I'd spend $999,999 on advertising and $1 on product. I'm just saying that if you want to keep borrowing, spending, and taxing, you're more than welcome to stay in the status quo. That's a you problem, but I'm suggesting we all repeat, no more borrowing, no more spending, no more taxing. Can Americans actually say those words? It's only 3 variables, ladies and gentlemen.
Of course, virtually everybody in the world, in the United States with half a brain, would subscribe to those simple principles. No more borrowing, no more spending, and no more taxation. But I think there's a caveat, and I think you do as well. I think the caveat is that there's a necessary amount of taxing to minimally run services in both the municipality, a state, and in the federal and in the republic. And you would like to find that sweet spot to the best of your ability. Isn't that really what you're trying to say? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but isn't that really what a grown man wants to do? That wants to be a member of the Gang of Eight?
Well, you keep mentioning Gang of Eight, and all I'm trying to really point out is a political, economic, philosophy, theory, or run a mental mind simulation, because we can look at the actual projected numbers. We can go full Zimbabwe, and those $1 trillion now are collectibles. I'm not saying.
I agree that you believe that there is a certain minimal level of taxation on a federal, state, and local level that you would support.
Yeah, I feel like 10% is fair. That seems fair to me. No one should have to pay more than 10% of their total net income in taxation over a period of 365 days. And it
includes local tax.
Everything. Nothing should be more. Nobody should pay more than 10%. If you're going to tithe 10% to your church, why should we tithe more than 10% to the government?
How do you do that in practice if John makes $300,000 a year and he has to pay $30,000 in total taxes, and Fred, because he's not as smart as John, makes only $150,000 a year, and he has to pay a total of $15,000. So how do we delve that up between state, local, and federal governments, John's 30,000 and Fred's 15,000 when John lives in Chicago and Fred lives in New Jersey? How do we do that? Go ahead. I'm interested.
Okay, are you willing to go on mute? I'm going to read a poem. It's about 60 seconds. It's going to answer your question. May not be the answer you want, but it's the answer I'm giving to you. You ready? It's called Distracting Thoughts. It's a poem I wrote to answer your question. I used Grok AI to create it. Evil thoughts can even arise during study and prayer and communication on X. And if they do, you should ignore them entirely and avert your mind from them immediately. Do not try to examine these thoughts, for that is a task for the righteous in whom evil finds no root. But the evil you experience is rooted in your own selfishness. Do not be dejected because of this. Rather, redouble your efforts on X to concentrate your mind, and in this way fill yourself with joy and gladness, realizing that distractions arise because your prayer and study are approaching selflessness. When distractions arise, ignore them, and answer not fools according to their folly, lest you too become a fool. What if you cannot ignore them? Then humble yourself before God and ask God to rescue you from these turbulent waters. Ladies and gentlemen, I am telling you that turbulent waters is the status quo. And there's nothing new under the sun, and everything that is has already been. But why didn't the internet solve some of these financial crises that are afoot? Why aren't there cost efficiencies? Why can't we communicate effectively? Why can't we have peace now?
$30,000 and Fred only paid $15,000 because you and I have agreed. I'm okay with it. That 10% of John's income is $30,000, and 10% of Fred's income is $15,000. But John lives in Chicago and Fred lives in New Jersey. Without a poem, can you share with me what your thoughts would be on how Grok would solve this problem? Because apparently, I don't think the poem is going to solve the problem.
Okay, I'm going to break it down for you very simply. Listen closely. It's 3 simple variables. Repeat after me. Stop borrowing, stop spending, stop taxing. That's borrowing with a B, spending with an S, T with a tax. That's borrowing, spending, taxing. Borrowing, spending, taxing. Stop it! Stop borrowing! Stop spending! Stop taxing! Do you hear the words coming out of my mouth? Stop spending! Stop borrowing! Stop taxing us! Do you hear the words coming out of my mouth?
We got it. Well, the problem is the central banking system. If you have a central banking system based on fractional reserve banking, you can never stop borrowing and taxing because it's a system based on never having enough money.
John, last question before I go. When you jerk off, do you use cream or oil? Because this is the dumbest shit I ever heard in my life.
All right, well, thank you for participating. You're on our YouTubes. That's about 15 different YouTubes, 3 different X's, 2 different Clubhouses. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't masturbate with creams. That's total projection on your part, sir.
Are you done?
Oh no, this show is still going. I'm going to read another little poem. You guys came. You guys donated. I just hope I leave you with a little joy. You weary me with proof enough that all this meditation stuff is self-hypnosis. Be it so. Do you suppose I did not know? Still, to be accurate, I fear the symptoms are entirely strange. If I were hard, I'd make it clear that criticism must arrange an explanation different for this particular event. Surely, your best work always finds itself so object of the minds. In vain you ply the brush, distracted by something you have heard or acted. Expect some tedious visitor Your eye runs furtive to the door. Your hand refuses to obey. You throw the useless brush away. I think I hear the word you say. Others attain to a certain degree of illumination and then stumble seeking such occult powers as clairvoyance and clairaudience. Receive the gift, the Holy Ghost. Such gift implying, as I guess, this very superconsciousness. Miracles follow as a doer. Miracles follow as a dower. But they used the fatal power and lost the spirit in the act. Whilst others not attaining attempt a shortcut by means of such drugs as opium and hashish, the latter of which is most powerful in producing a state of pseudo-samadhi, to make me as one dead, to lose the girders of the soul and gain, breathing and life for the intelligible, find death, yet find it living. In the midst of my complicated hallucination, I could perceive I had a dual existence. One portion of me was whirled unresistingly along the track of this tremendous experience, and the other sat looking down from a height upon its double, observing, reassuring, and serenely weighing all the phenomena. Probably samadhi itself acts something like this, but hashish produces at times, under certain conditions, severe suffering, and the yogi does not undergo such, for he leaves it in his wake. Hashish may in some way be the loosener of the girders of the soul, but this is all. Huxley says the influence of diet on dreams, of stimulants upon the fullness and the velocity of thought, the delirious phantoms generated by disease, by hashish, or by alcohol, will occur to everyone as examples of the marvelous sensitiveness of the apparatus of ideation to purely physical influences. Not by the pipings of a bird in skies of blue on fields of gold, but by a fierce and loathly word, the abomination must be told. The holy work must twist its spell from hemp of madness grown in hell. Others again do not possess this stability of mind, the natural health and strength so necessary in this severe mental struggle, as the Ribot says, it is all confined to an alienation in the etymological sense of certain states of consciousness which the ego does not consider as its own, but which it objectivates. And finally, by placing it outside itself, ends by attributing an actual existence independent of its own. Others attain but a glimpse. Maimonides long ago noticed. Learn that prophecy is an emanation from God, which flows through the intermediary of the active intellect upon the rational faculty first, and then upon the imaginative faculty. It is the highest degree of a man and the term of perfection to which the species may aspire. And this state is the highest perfection of the imaginative faculty. If the emanation flows into the imaginative faculty only, and if the rational faculty remains behind, either on account of original structure or from disuse, then is constituted the class of men called men of the state, diviners. There come to men of this class, even when they are awake, wonderful visions, similar to prophetic visions. They delight much in them, believing they have acquired all sciences without study. But all those who really do attain and remain silent. The Hindu practice says mysticus in time bears out Western speculation. Whether we take the shadowy idealism of Berkeley or the self-refuted monism of Haeckel, all these men got our results and interpreted them in the partial light of their varied intellect, their diverse surroundings and education. But the result is the same physiological phenomenon from Plato and Christ to Spinoza and Shankaracharya. from Augustine and Abelard, Bohm and Weigel in their Christian communities to Trismegistus and Porphyry, Mohammed and Paracelsus in their mystic palaces of wisdom. The doctrine is essentially one, and its essence is that existence is one. But to my experience, it is certain that in jhana, the ego is rejected. This is absolutely true of Berkeley when in the dialogues he writes, "To know everything knowable is certainly a perfection, but to endure or suffer or feel anything by sense is an imperfection. The former, I say, agrees to God, but not the latter. God knows or hath ideas, but the ideas are not conveyed to him by sense as ours are. God to him is a Mahayogi." It is absolutely true of Hume, but Hume, studiously avoiding the word God, could find no helpmeet of his place. For my part, when I enter most intimately into what I call myself, I always stumble on some particular perception or other, of heat or cold, light or shade, love or hatred, pain or pleasure. I never can catch myself at any time without a perception, and never can observe anything but the perception. We only feel the event, namely the existence of an idea, consequent to the command of the will. But the manner in which this operation is performed, the power by which it is produced, is entirely beyond our comprehension. The command of the mind over itself is limited, as well as its command over the body. But these limits are not known by reason or any acquaintance with the nature of cause and effect, but only by experience and observation, as in all other natural events and in the operation of external objects. Our authority over our sentiments is much weaker than over our ideas, and even the latter authority is circumscribed within very narrow boundaries. Will any one pretend to assign the ultimate reason of these boundaries, or show why the power is deficient in one case and not in another? Can we give any reason for these variations except experience? Where then is the power of which we pretend to be conscious? Is there not here, either in a spiritual or material substance, both some secret mechanism or structure of parts upon which the effect depends, and which, being entirely unknown to us, renders the power or energy of the will equally unknown and incomprehensible? We are ignorant, it is true, of the manner in which bodies operate on each other. Their force or energy is entirely incomprehensible. But are we not equally ignorant of the manner of or force by which a mind, even the supreme mind, operates either on itself or on body? Whence, I beseech you, do we acquire any idea of it? We have no sentiment or consciousness of this power in ourselves. We have no idea of the Supreme Being, but what we learn from reflection on our own faculties. Hume is ignorant of the Supreme Being, yet his ignorance is so naive that he all but lifted the veil of Isis. His ignorance is in every way equivalent to Berkeley's God. It is absolutely true of Kant, who set himself the question, must we believe that mysticism is like some vast ocean and the empire of illusion? And then again and again answered in the negative. He proposed time after time that reason be its own end, founded upon right and duty, and in the freedom of the person the moral sublimity of duty. It is not so much because it is subject to the moral law that the person has sublimity, but because it gives that law to itself and is not subject to it on any other condition. Expressing himself with regard to the free being, Kant says, in him no act would be born, and no act would perish. In other words, the free being is a yogi, pure and simple. Kant's a priori takes the place of Hume's ignorance, which we have seen was none other than Berkeley's God. It is absolutely true of Huxley, who was as astute a thinker as Hume. The succession of mental states is in ideation is not fortuitous. Thus, the idea of the word horse pretended itself to my mind and was followed in quick succession by the idea of four legs, hoofs, teeth, rider, saddle, racing, cheating, all of which ideas are connected in my experience with the impression or the idea of a horse and with one another by the relations of contiguity and succession. A. No great attention to what passes in the mind is needful to prove that our trains of thought are neither to be arrested nor even permanently controlled by our desires or emotions. Nevertheless, they are largely influenced by them. In presence of a strong desire or emotion, the stream of thought no longer flows on in a straight course, but seems, as it were, to eddy round the idea of that which is the object of the emotion. Every one who has eaten his bread in sorrow knows how strangely the current of ideas whirls about the conception of the object of regret or remorse as a center, every now and then indeed breaking away into the new track suggested by passing associations, but still returning to the central thought. Few can have been so happy as to have escaped the social bore, whose pet notion is certain to crop up when whatever topic is started, when the fixed idea of the monomaniac is but the extreme form of the same phenomenon. Okay, that's a reading from J.F.C. Fuller, Star of the West, a critical essay upon the works of Aleister Crowley. This is candidate John. This is a long show. We're still going here. Viva, thanks for being here. We cleared out the house with the stop borrowing, stop spending, stop taxing. People can't take it. It's too traumatic for some people. People reject the programming. I'm trying to compress it and make it simpler for people by just saying stop borrowing, stop spending, stop taxing. It's called BST. Let's pass the BST HR Act to stop borrowing, stop spending, stop taxing.
Actually suggesting that Jerry Falwell had sex with his mother.
So why did Hustler have him and his mother together?
Hustler puts him and his mother together in a example of literary travesty, if you will.
And what public purpose does this serve?
Well, it serves the same public purpose as having Gary Trudeau say that Reagan has no brain or that George Bush is a wimp. It lets us look at public figures a little bit differently. We have a long tradition in this country of satiric commentary. Now, if Jerry Falwell can sue when there has been no libelous speech purely on the grounds of emotional distress, then so can other public figures. And imagine, if you will, suits against people like Gary Trudeau and Johnny Carson for what he says on the Tonight Show tonight. Obviously, when people criticize public figures, they're going to experience emotional distress. We all know that. It's the easiest thing in the world to claim, and it's impossible to refute, and that's what makes it a meaningless standard. Really, all it does is allow us to punish unpopular speech. And this country is founded, at least in part, on the firm belief that unpopular speech is absolutely vital to the health of our nation.
And there you have it, People versus Larry Flint on the First Amendment. Yes, there, without question, was pressure was brought to bear by the government, specifically the FCC, because us people, we citizens of America own the airwaves, and the government, and specifically the FCC, are in charge of the public trust. And when there is something that goes across the airwaves, which by the way is radio and TV, it's not cable, it's not the internet, it's not YouTube. When it goes across the public airwaves, the FCC can get involved. And without question,